On the previous video, I decided to paint a 1/144th Wing Gundam kit from the 90s that I got from an eBay parts lot. It wasn't well put together and it was very dusty. It also had the lingering smell of nicotine and the parts had yellowed. I began by disassembling it, sanding, and cleaning up the parts a little bit. I also sprayed a metallic base on the blue parts because I am hoping to achieve a nice candy metallic finish on them. I sprayed these parts first because I wanted to give the silver base a couple of days to cure properly. With that out of the way, I can go ahead and begin priming the rest of the parts. I began by decanting some Tamiya Fine Surface Primer. I chose white for this particular build because that's all I had. Decanting the Tamiya primer into a small jar like this one will allow me to airbrush it instead of spraying it straight out of the can. This will give me more control while using less primer. After I decant the primer, I let it sit for a few minutes so that it can release the propellant that's mixed in within it. Decanting it into an airbrushing jar allows you to just pop in a lid and pop that right into the airbrush. I will be using a Badger 200 set at 20 psi to prime the parts. This is a single action siphon feed airbrush. After a couple of test sprays, I began to prime the parts. I want to strongly emphasize the use of gloves and protective gear while spraying your parts, especially when handling strong chemicals, like lacquer-based paints and lacquer thinners. Those chemicals can be quite nasty on the human body. Don't be like this buffoon and spray directly on your hands. He learned his lesson, had to use lacquer thinner on his hands. I'm surprised his fingers didn't fall off after using that much lacquer thinner to clean off the paint. As usual, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Plastic Spoons. I will not be providing you links on where to buy these spoons. You're gonna have to find your own links to purchase these plastic spoons. Here's all the parts after one coat of Tamiya surface primer. For the most part, the parts were covered pretty well, but there was still some recessed areas where the primer really didn't reach and the panel lining was still showing through. I decided to decant just a little bit of the primer and load it up into my gravity feed airbrush to touch up the recessed areas that were not covered very well by the first pass. Since the wings are pretty large, I decided to go ahead and spray the Tamiya primer right out of the can. After touching up the parts, this is the end result. These parts look great. I was going to spray them with white paint once more, but the primer looks so good. I mean, compared to before, they've really come a long way. The primer laid down very smoothly. I'm just gonna leave them as is. I think they look great. That's it for this part. Please join me next time on part 3. Thank you for spending your valuable time with me, and I hope to see you on the next video.